The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar which is designed to support you if you've recently experienced a redundancy. My name's Julie Franklin and I'm a Career and Professional Development Advisor with the RSC, one of a team of specialists who are here to help. I'm joined today by my colleague Toby Underwood, currently an Accreditation Manager with the RSC, who experienced himself a redundancy from a pharmaceutical company some years ago, but made the situation work for him and made a very successful career change. So Toby, would you like to say hello?
Hi everyone, I hope what I say can be useful and thanks Julie for asking me to contribute.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I'm sure what you have to say will be very useful for people. Now, we do appreciate that this may be a distressing and a worrying time for you, but we'd like to take you through some ways to take control of the situation and highlight how your RSC membership can support you. There are many ways that we can help, and even if you've never engaged with your membership much before, now could be the time to make it work for you. So today, we are going to cover career transitions, skills that can help you make those transitions. We're going to go through some practical advice on CVs and applications, interviews, networking, and personal and professional development. Redundancy itself, it can seem personal. It really isn't. It's sometimes very difficult if the job was one that you really enjoyed and you wouldn't have chosen to leave. But there is lots of support available from the RSC and from other sources, so make sure that you use it. Think of it this way: any time of change creates energy, which can be used positively or negatively. Use the energy that the redundancy has created wisely to think about managing this next phase of your career. So let's talk about career transitions. Managing change is something that's a fact of life these days. Jobs for life are very rare. Change is a fact of life. And also 9 to 5 nowadays means that you could have somewhere between 5 and 9 jobs in the course of your career. Of course, change can be a threat, but it can also be an opportunity. So I'd like to bring our guest in now, Toby, to talk about his experiences. So Toby, we'd like to hear your story. How did you initially react to the news that your job was about to be made redundant, and what were your thoughts in those early days?
Well, thanks Julie. I think the overwhelming emotion that I went through initially was shock. And that sounds quite strange because my situation was it was a site closure, so I wasn't alone, and certainly there was probably hundreds of people going through the same thing as I was, and it shouldn't have been a surprise because I think realistically as colleagues and as staff we knew something was happening, but I think when you hear that news then it is a shock, and I think that's okay to admit that and for people to experience that, and I think once you go through that, then you hit a sort of a whole raft of emotions. So there's definitely shock, as I say. There was sadness because I'd worked for the company for 13 years, and it was something I was proud of. Anger, I was angry at the company. I was angry at the senior management team for putting me through it. And sort of almost in a funny way, jealousy as well, because other people were finding jobs during those early days quite quickly. Some people were entering retirement and not wishing to wish my life away. That was some jealousy there. So you do go through all those emotions, and I think that is just a reflection of the shock you're going through. I think what helped me massively was talking to other people, and obviously because that was a site closure, there were lots of other people in the same situation as I was. So just talking through things, that can be with colleagues, it can be with family. If you've got a mentor, then I would suggest speaking to people like that, and just sort of like sharing those what you're feeling actually does help both professionally and on an emotional level. And I think once I'd started going through those initial feelings, I worked out that you can only control the controllables. So yes, we're being made redundant. I can't control that, but what I can control is make sure that I'm prepared for the next step, prepared for the writing a CV, for an interview, all those kind of things. So you can only control what you can do. And once you try and limit that down to those things that you can control, then I think it helps you move forward.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
does that help?
Yes, no, it does indeed. And I think for anyone listening, if you're going through those emotions of anger and frustration, it's perfectly natural. And I think that's what I was meaning about it generates energy. A change like this generates energy, and you can use that energy positively. You can choose to use it negatively, or you can choose to use it positively, but use it and use it positively to make the situation work for you. In the experience that I've got with people who've been made redundant in my job as well, it's a good opportunity to take stock really of what's really important to you. And making a success of this situation and going forward from here really will start with you. So just, stop and take a look and just think, what do you enjoy? What motivates you? What would success look like for you? And what have you got to offer other people? I mean, there's no right and wrong answers to these questions at all. It's a personal journey for everyone. And I think what Toby was saying about, having been with a company for 13 years, I think sometimes you feel that's the only thing that you can do. And all the time you're in that environment, you're not going to give up a successful, well-paid job that you enjoy just to go and chance at something else. But if the situation is forced on you, it's a good idea to go really back to basics and think, what actually motivates me and what do I really enjoy doing? And also think about the variety of science-related jobs that are actually out there. Chemistry, a training in chemistry gives you a wide range of transferable skills. There are all sorts of things there, problem solving, project management, possibly, all sorts of things which you do and probably just take for granted about yourself. What do you actually enjoy? Is it liaising with customers? Maybe it's getting more into the commercial side. All sorts of things are available where your chemistry background can really make a difference to your prospects of being hired. And there might be something that give you new impetus and new excitement in the next phase of your career. We've certainly heard a lot in our time, and here are just some on the screen now of transitions that we've heard our members making after a redundancy. So there are some which aren't too surprising. The top one, a senior medicinal chemist, became a regulatory affairs officer. That's something you can think about. Department leader became a director of medical chemistry. But then we have some rather left field ones. We've got there a medical chemistry scientist became a vicar. So, it's really time for you to think about, what do I want to do? The biggest mistake, I think, is to think or to go for exactly the same job all over again without really thinking it through. Toby, you made quite a radical change from the job that you had to the job that you do now. So would you like to take us through that change and how it worked for you?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. I'd just like to echo what you said there. I think taking a step back is really important, and that's probably what I didn't do initially. I started applying for jobs very similar to what I had. So I was a lab chemist or a laboratory chemist with a bit of management experience. So I was looking for those types of roles, which is fine and understandable because that's the career I was in, and that was something I was doing. But at those very early days, I didn't have a plan B, and I think that's important. I developed a plan B as I went along, and for me, that was to take a step back and look at what I really enjoy. Now, I did enjoy laboratory chemistry and being in the lab. I can't lie about that. But I did also enjoy academic liaison and working with academics, and sort of either helping them or them helping me. So then I started looking for jobs in that kind of arena. And I just noticed there was one from the RSC come up. I've been a member for a number of years. I probably hadn't used my membership as much as I should have done. So I had to learn what the RSC was from a wider sense, and more, understand what they did apart from just, the usual things that you get through the post and email. And yeah, it opened up for me. I had an interview and I never looked back really. I think if I'm honest, those early days, once I started working for the RSC, I did miss the lab and wondered what I'd done. But as I moved on, I realised I was really enjoying it. And I'm quite openly admit I do still miss working in the lab a bit. but I think the pros outweigh the cons from the career change that I made. So which is essentially now an office-based role. So yeah, it was, the best advice I can have is, take a step back, realize that you have got some, you are a commodity that actually have, you bring something to whatever role you do, but also have a plan B as well. Think outside the box a bit.
I think that's very wise advice. I share what you're saying about always missing the lab. I mean, I'm a chemist too, or well, still am in my heart, but I haven't done any real chemistry for a long time. But I thoroughly enjoy the role that I do now. So it's not a case of there is only one job in the world for you. It might feel like there is at the moment, and I appreciate that. There's quite a lot of pain involved, but there isn't just one job for you. We're all complicated creatures, and we can all turn our hand to a lot of different things. And don't take any of your skills for granted. Really have a think about what you do on a daily basis, what you're good at, what people value you for. Don't see yourself through your company's eyes or your ex-company's eyes. You know what they value about you, but there's far more to you and far more to your skill set than that. If you need any help with this, I am going to put the careers team's contact details up on the screen later on in this webinar, and you're very welcome to contact us and go through all of this if it's thrown up a lot of things that you feel that you need to think about. So Toby's is a real life story of how you can make a radical change and make it successfully. So when you're considering your next move, we would advise that you ask yourself some fundamental questions really about what you want your future to look like. So for example, how involved in science do you want to be? Do you still love the lab so much that you're interested in hands-on science and that's all? Are you interested in using your scientific knowledge in a wider context, or using your skills? We mentioned project management. If you're a successful project manager, you can manage projects across a wide range of industries. Try to choose them where your scientific background will actually give you an advantage and make you stand out. But it doesn't mean to say that you have to apply for exactly the same job all over again. It is an opportunity to make a change on your terms. And also think about your limits. We all need to earn enough to pay the bills, but how important is salary to you? Would you be willing to take, maybe a small pay cut to get into the kind of job that you think you'd like to do from now on? Think about the type of company that you'd like to work for. Maybe you've been working in a large company and you'd quite like to try a smaller company, or the other way round. All bets are on. You can really think blue skies at this stage. Think about how far you're willing to commute, whether you're willing to relocate, how many hours you're prepared to work, are you prepared to travel, and if so, how much? And thinking in this way starts to get you back in control of the situation. I think the anger that Toby described, comes very much from feeling like control has been taken away from you. And whilst I agree with Toby on, you can only control what you can control, there is quite a lot there that is within your power to control. So, just think about what it is you want to do, where you might get the information from, and who you need to be talking to at this stage. So we're now going to talk about skills, which are the key to a successful change in any way, throughout your life, really, not just in your career. And what I would say is that I know I'm talking to you and you're a very professional scientist, and I appreciate that about you, but is the science going to be enough going forward from here? And the answer is invariably no. We know that employers really value the other skills that you bring to the job. So lots of people will have the same academic qualifications and experience to you. So you can't really rely on those to get you the opportunity that you want. You really need to think at this stage, what skills are actually going to make you stand out when you come to apply for new jobs. So what do you do well? What do others value about you? And as I said, are you really aware of all the skills that you've got, or are you just seeing them as, well, it's just what I do? So many people are very self-deprecating about what they can actually do, and some of those skills really are the key to getting you a new job in a job that you want, in a role that you really want to do. And don't forget, this is a powerful message. The skills that you have don't belong to the job that you were doing at the time. They all belong to you. So again, it's within your power to present those skills, to understand what they are and to present them in a way that's going to make sense to a potential employer, and will get you the opportunities that you want. We know that most employers recruit on a competency-based model, and you can see something about it on your screen now. Equal importance is given to your knowledge, so that will be your qualifications, what you've studied, your skills, so that'll be how you put that knowledge into effect. So it might be certain techniques that you can use, certain reactions that you can do, pieces of equipment that you're familiar with. It could be all of that sort of thing. But then the third and very important part of that pie, or pizza, whatever you like to call it, that people very often ignore and forget about, are your attitudes and behaviours. So we know that employers not only want to know what you can do, but also how you do it. So things like, are you a good team worker? Are you good at problem solving? Are you good with customers? Are you the person that holds a team together? We all have these transferable skills that we take for granted about ourselves, but can really be the key to success and moving on. So I'd like to ask Toby now. Toby, what examples of transferable skills would you think that you had that allowed you to make that successful transition?
Thanks, Julie. Well, I think first of all, I am a chemistry graduate or medicinal chemistry graduate, and I think the thing to realise is, as chemistry graduates, we do have a lot of transferable skills and professional skills already that we've gained through that degree program that you've gone on, or just by actually gaining experience in that arena. So things like problem solving, logical thinking, team working, sort of time management, they're all there. You get those through your training, and just simply by being a chemist in the lab or chemical scientist in the lab, you're using those skills on a daily basis. And I think that's often forgotten, certainly very early on in your career, that you don't realise what transferable skills you have got. So I think as when you're trained as a chemist, you get a lot of transferable skills naturally, and I think it's important to reflect on those as you go through your career and understand when you are using them. Obviously, team working as well is very important. And in most instances, as a chemist, you will be working with others, whether that be as a chemist or your colleagues in other science disciplines, or potentially customers or collaborators. It's all those things really. So yeah, I think those transferable skills are there, and you need to recognise what you've got and really sort of try and bring those out in what you're, how you move forward.
Yeah, I think that's very wise advice. And, we all do take ourselves for granted. And sometimes I think we're guilty of assuming that a potential employer, where we're making an application for a job, knows us, and therefore knows what we're capable of. You have to tell them everything. If they've asked for somebody who's a good team worker, don't assume that they'll know that you're a good team worker, or assume that you are. If they've actually asked for that, you need to tell them. So I think sometimes, talk to family, friends, talk to, your former colleagues. As Toby was saying earlier on, it's really useful to talk to people who are in the same situation, because you can all support one another, and ask your colleagues what they value about you, what they see as being your strengths. And you might be really, really surprised at what they say. They might really value things about you that you had overlooked in yourself. But if that's the case, and if that's how people see you, and that's a real strength for you, that's something that you can use, and you need to make sure that potential employers know about those skills too. So on the screen now, you've just got some competencies which we know from talking to employers are well sought after. Obviously, you need the excellent science too if you're going to carry on in science. But all of these that are on the screen now, we know that employers find very, very important. So think about what examples you've got of showing those skills. So self-knowledge and self-awareness, communication skills, team working, leadership, possibly not for all roles, but it is a useful thing. Taking the initiative, problem solving, and time management. They're the things that employers tell us that they really look for. One thing that I'd recommend that you do is, obviously, if you're looking for another job, you are going to be looking at job adverts. But I think a big mistake that people make is they'll look at a job advert, and if it's somewhere where they don't want to move to, or there's some reason why they can't take that specific job, they'll just dismiss the whole advert as being not useful. Job adverts are a fantastic free source of information. You can find out who's hiring, you can find out what kinds of roles are out there. You can also really, really importantly, look at the skills that employers are looking for. You'll have an idea of the kinds of jobs that you would like to do from here on. So look for adverts for those roles. Take the pressure off yourself. Think, I don't have to apply for this job if I don't want to, if it's too far away or whatever the reason might be, but I'm going to use it as a free source of information and see if I were to apply for a role like this, what I'd need to prove to the employer. And here's an example of an anonymized advert here. And you can see that I'm not going to go through all the words on the screen there now. That's not what this is intended for. But what I've done is I've put in bold the emphasis that this particular employer is putting on transferable skills. They've actually put, you'll have a degree or equivalent qualification in chemistry. So that's the most important thing they're looking for. But then look, after that, the next most important things are the transferable skills: a can-do attitude, attention to detail, ability to work in a team. And look, right at the very bottom bullet point, then you get experience of analytical and purification techniques. So, you know, these things really are sought after by employers. They can teach you to use a new piece of instrumentation. They can teach you how a process works. They know that. They know you're all very intelligent people, but you can't necessarily teach people to be good team workers, to have that attention to detail. So these things about you are just as employable, if not more so, than your actual practical knowledge. And then look at the national pictures. There's lots of ways that you can find out about different opportunities that are available. Get ideas, identify trends to find opportunities. There's some ideas on the screen now about where you might look and where you might find opportunities to look at. And at the moment, just take a broad sweep of them and think, does that sound like me? Does that sound like the kind of thing I'd want to do? Is this something I've never considered before, but now might be the time to do it? And then just drill into those adverts and see what skills are required for those particular roles and how you match up in terms of your skill profile. And don't think it's only skills that you use at work either. You know, we all do things outside of work that give us an opportunity to use a whole different range of skills. So, for example, if you're looking for a more managerially related role, you haven't got management experience at work, but you've organised a local voluntary group, or you manage a local society or something like that, all of those experiences are worthwhile. It's not just what you do at work. Someone who's looking to fill a role doesn't want to employ your previous job, but they might want to employ you. So if you're doing things outside of work that are good evidence for skills that you've got, then don't be afraid to bring those into the picture as well. So we're going to get down to some nuts and bolts now and look at CVs and applications. And the basics of CVs, well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Make it easy to read. Minimum font. Try not to use Times New Roman, because a lot of templates use Times New Roman as a font, and we know that employers don't like template CVs. Think about language, check your spelling, get somebody to read it for you. Think about, don't use acronyms. You know, we're all very guilty, us in the RSC, we're just as bad of using acronyms, and we all know what they mean, but nobody outside the RSC would. So make sure that your CV is very, very easy to read by somebody who's not a scientist. There's lots of first sorts through CVs are done by people who are HR professionals or recruitment agents. The science doesn't mean anything to them. They're looking for keywords which they've put in the advert. They're looking for those on the first page of your CV. So don't use very long screeds of script. Use bullet points rather than a narrative style. Try and put the action word that describes what you did against the bullet point. And keep it to a maximum of 2 pages if you can. If you're going for a very senior role, maybe you can run to 3 pages, but don't feel that it's got to be War and Peace. Even though CV means curriculum vitae, which means life story, that's not what they want. They want it to be tailored to the job that they're offering. Everything that you do, letters, personal statements, must be tailored to the opportunity that you're applying for. And it shows so much to the employer if you've taken the time to do that. So use all the information provided by the employer. Look the employer up online, see what they've got on social media, find out as much about them as you can, and follow all the employer's instructions about applications. At that stage, you know, they're holding all the cards, they've got the job and you want it, so play by their rules. But be assertive about what you can offer. A lot of people worry about, well, how do I make the difference between a CV and a covering letter or covering statement? You know, do I just have to repeat chunks of my CV? Well, the answer to that is no. And I think a good way to think of that is that your CV is your what. It's all the factual information. It's what qualifications you've got. It's what chemistry techniques you can use. It's what transferable skills you've got. So it's quite factual. Your letter or your personal statement should really complement that by being your why. So in other words, it's your motivation for applying for that role, why you want the role, why that science or why that job or why that company really appeals to you, why you've got something to offer them. And then the two, the what and the why, read very well together and make a good application. But the recruitment market is absolutely brutal, and if you don't grab their attention within a 10-15 second scan of page one of your CV, they're not going to read on. We haven't got time to go into huge amounts of detail in this webinar, but we have got other webinars on the subject of CV writing, and if you're a member, of course, you can always get in touch with the careers team and we can help you with that by checking through mock applications or real applications for you. So again, 2 pages long, tailored to employers' requirements, a mixture of technical transferable skills and the ones that they have specified, with examples, if you can, of when you've demonstrated those skills, and an outcome possibly. You know, if you used your commercial skills, let's say, to get new business in that was worth, you know, a number of thousands of pounds, get that in your CV. That kind of thing really does make an impact. And don't forget that the first page really must grab the reader's attention very, very quickly. Okay, so make sure that each CV and cover letter that you write is targeted. Think of them as marketing documents and not life stories, and that might help you with all of this. Your first page is your shop window. You should have relevant experience on there, relevant qualifications, examples of work, projects. If you managed people, how many was it? What did you achieve? What key skills you have? And just make sure, certainly on page one, that every word works for you. And then on the second page, you can have more additional information that you think might be interesting to them. But don't forget that they will only read the second page if your first page has grabbed them. So everything that's really, really relevant needs to be on page one. On your second page, you can have a bit more about your career background, training that you've had, education, additional skills, interests and hobbies. A bit of a vexed question. Some people say yes, they like to read them. Other people think, well, no, you could use the space to say something more about your professional life. I would say if you've got interesting hobbies, you know, and they demonstrate something about you, if you're a leader of your local photographic society or something like that, it's worth having that on there, but don't put too much. References and publications, yes, you can put those, but only if they're relevant. The publications, for references, you can always put references available on request if you want to save yourself some space as well. So again, that's a bit of a whistle stop, but we can give you more tailored advice on that if you need it, so do get in touch. I'm going to bring Toby in again now. And Toby, I want you to talk as a manager now. Now you've made the successful transition to being a manager in the RSC. You must see lots and lots of applications. So I just wonder, from your perspective, what would make a CV and a covering letter stand out for you?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. First, before I move on to that, I think just reflecting on my own experience when I was made redundant, I didn't have a clue. I hadn't written a CV for 13 years, so I needed help, and I openly said that and admitted that. So I had to speak to people about how to write a CV, like you're doing now, and look at webinars or speak to people. I would recommend when you write your CV, get somebody to read it, whether that be someone like Julie, yourself, or even just a family member. Sometimes recruiting managers might not be chemists themselves, so making sure it makes sense to sort of people outside the discipline is important. So I'd recommend that. Anyway, moving on to the direct question. Sorry, Julie, about as me as a manager. I think you said a lot of it. First thing I look at when I look at a CV, and I do see a few, I look at the length of the CV. So good advice, 2 pages. Generally, if I see CVs that are longer than that, they always work their way to the bottom of the pile. I probably don't read them initially. I look at the ones that are 2 pages first. I then look at, has the person made an attempt to tailor make their CV to the job role? Can that person do this job that I'm asking them to do? And that is sort of like, so they've not used a templated CV as such, that they've actually tailor-made it to the role, looked at the skills and knowledge that's needed, and make sure that is in the CV. That's what I look for initially. I'm also looking as a recruitment manager, something interesting, something that I can pull out, something that makes the person stand out from the crowd. And I know that's very difficult, and I do know that each recruiting manager is very different. So this is just my interpretation, and this is what I do. But I look for something interesting about the person, and that might be something to do with the job on that first page. If they grab me on the first page and it works down to the second page, it might be something in their personal life that they do, their hobbies, but something that makes them stand out. That's something that I can talk to them about. I personally, when I was doing applications, and even when I read them now, the thing I find most challenging is the covering letter, which we haven't really talked about here. When I was going through the process, I found that harder to write than the CV, and in most instances, I find it harder to read those than the CV as well, because it's almost done as a second thing that's sort of almost done sort of without as much time as a CV. So I do think spending time on covering letters is important. And then just little personal touches as well. I know you can put references on request. For me, I like to see people put their references down, because if I do have to go and get a reference, that means it's another job for me to go back and ask what the reference is. But I do realise that is just my own personal perspective, which much of this is. But essentially, a key tip is short, grab my attention, and link it to the job. They're the main recommendations there.
Okay, thanks, Toby. Yeah, sound advice there. Just think about what I said about the what and the why with the CV and the covering letter, and that might help you to do that. Again, if you're an RSC member, you're very welcome to do some mock applications if you like, and send them to us. Use a real job advert, send us the job advert, do a mock application, and the more practice you get at it, the better you'll get at it. And we're more than happy to look through those for you and give you some feedback. So that's good advice there from Toby. And again, I'd just like to echo what Toby said. Don't forget that the person who first reads your application probably isn't going to read your CV and your letter together, and they may well not be a chemist. So just make sure that you're using plain English, that it's very easy to pick out the keywords, and that you're using the employer's language back to them when you describe your skills. And that will go a long way to getting your CV noticed. So we're going to move on to interviews now. Because of the current situation, I can foresee that many more interviews are going to be carried out remotely, both now and in the future, which is an extra layer of complexity to deal with, really. Skype and Zoom are common tools, and they can be better if you can actually see the person that you're talking to. Phone interviews are universally disliked because you can't pick up on any visual clue from the person who's interviewing you. But whichever format is being used, there are some general rules which will help you to keep calm and give of your best. So we're going to go through those now. The main thing is preparation. Just research the organisation really thoroughly. What does it do? What does it produce? Where is it? How many staff has it got? Current issues, what's it been doing recently? You can probably get hold online of an annual report, account, look at their website, and more importantly these days is see what presence they have on social media. Some people are more comfortable with social media than others, but whether you like it or not, it is becoming a force in recruitment, and it certainly is a way for you to find out a lot in a short amount of time about a company and what they do. So thorough research will really help you to answer those really difficult questions. Sometimes they're the worst questions. Why do you want to come and work for us? I, as a manager, have seen so many people trip up over that question and can't answer it, that if you've done some background research into the organisation, you know what they do and why that's of interest to you, what you've got to offer. That will really help you to field those sorts of questions. Obviously, you're going to be asked about your suitability for the role. So reread the job description and the candidate spec, and also go back over your CV and your letter and see what you told them and what examples you've given of your skill. Think about how your background, skills and qualifications relate to the role, and also try to identify if there are any areas of weakness in your application or lack of experience that they might well ask you to address. It's worth saying at this point that when employers write job descriptions, they write it for an ideal candidate that they know doesn't exist. So really don't worry if you're matching, 70% of what they're asking for, but there are some areas where you've maybe just not had enough experience, then don't let that stop you applying. But you do have to expect some questions about that at interview. So have something ready to show when you've demonstrated similar skills, maybe in a different context, or your willingness to learn and do things in a different way. So show that you understand the job, show how your experience up until now can help you to really make an impact in that role quickly. If you can, that's a good one. Or, how your transferable skills will allow you to make the transition into that role. That's a good one too. And if they ask, do you have any questions? Then my advice would always be, yes, have some questions. It's very easy to say things like, well, no, I think you've answered everything while we've been talking. That's fine. But even so, you want to leave them with a good impression of how keen you are and how excited you are by that opportunity. So think about some questions. I think my advice is always imagine that you're already in the role. Imagine that they've offered you the role. What are the obvious questions that you'd want to ask? And it might be things like, how many people are in the team? It might be, what would you expect me to have achieved in the first month? It might be, how many customers am I going to need to liaise with and what are their background? Just put yourself in the role already and think about the natural questions that you would want to know so that you could do the role well. And they make very good questions to ask at the end of an interview. It shows your real enthusiasm, if you like, and that you've thought it through. It can make you come across as a really strong candidate. Now, something that we know a lot of people don't like, and certainly a lot of our members are uncomfortable in dealing with, are the sort of competency-based questions, which can be hypothetical questions. They very often start off with, tell us about a time when you... So in other words, they're not about the science, they're about how you approach your role and how you approach your work. And here they're not looking for a science answer. They're looking for this attitude and behaviours, that third of the pizza that we looked at earlier. Not what you do, but how you do it. So make sure that you've read the job description through carefully. And if you've been keeping records of your professional development, you should be able to pull out a lot of experiences that you've had, both strictly technical and maybe more professional, shall we say, that you can call upon to answer questions like that. Don't be afraid if you're asked a question and you really don't know the answer or you've never been in the situation that they're describing. Don't be afraid to say so. It's much, much better to say, I've never been in that situation. However, what I think I might do is, that's absolutely acceptable. Don't forget that sometimes they will ask you a question that they know you don't really know the answer to because they want to see how you cope under pressure. So it's okay to take time to think. If you need a minute or two to think about an answer, say that you need that time. Don't be afraid of that. And then, use experiences from other parts of your life, from your social life, from whatever else you do, and show how you would react in such a situation at work, even if you've never experienced it to date. It's always tricky when you're asked a question that can almost an invitation to give a negative answer, such as tell us about your weaknesses. That's a pretty awful question. What they're looking for there is that self-awareness competency. They know that you're not good at absolutely everything. You know that you're not absolutely good at everything. What they want is you to demonstrate self-awareness, and it might be an example like, for example, I realised that my presentation skills weren't very strong, and that they needed to be better. So what I did was, volunteered to give a presentation at a local school. That's what they're looking for. It's not for you to say, I'm no good at presentation. It's for you to show that that awareness that your presentations needed to be better, and then actually doing something about it. That's what impresses. And I'm going to give you just a little model now, which will help you to prepare for these sort of competency-based questions. And you can keep it in your head while you're in the interview, and that will help you to structure your answer. So it's called the STAR model. And structure your answers around, if you're asked a question, tell us about a time when, or a hypothetical question. The S in STAR stands for situation. So first of all, set out the context. What was going on at the time? What was the background to it? Make sure that they fully understand what led to this situation in the first place. Task, what was required of you? What did you have to, what was required of you at that point to solve that problem, to deal with that situation? And it's very tempting, particularly if it was in the setting of a team, to talk about the team did this and the team did that. That's not what they want. They want to know what you did. So you can describe the team as you set the context, but when you're talking about the tasks, talk about what you did and what you decided, because that's really what they're interested in. A is for action. So what did you actually do? Did you change things? Did you go and talk to somebody else about what to do in this situation? Did you talk to all your colleagues? Did you do some research and find another way to tackle that problem? It could be anything, but make sure you're clear. And again, the actions that you describe are actions that you took and not the team took, because they want to know how you reacted here. And then the R in STAR is the result. What was the outcome? If it was a tricky situation, if it was something that didn't go according to plan, try to choose an example where there was a result, which may have been the result that was originally intended, but via a different route, or maybe it was a different result altogether. But nonetheless, talk about what came out of it, and then finish up, most importantly, with what you learned from that situation. So in other words, if you were in that situation again, how would you handle it, and what would you do differently? So keep the STAR model in mind. And I'm going to ask Toby again now, again as a manager. What advice would you have for people who want to make a good impression at an interview?
Thanks, Julie. So I think that the first thing I look for in somebody when they come to interview is, can I work with this person? And that's not their knowledge, skill, that kind of thing. It comes down to that very fundamental thing: is, can I work with this person on a daily, weekly basis? And that's really important to me personally. And then the second bit I look for is sort of what they can bring to the role. Can they bring anything different? Have they got that skill of bringing inspiration to the role? That's really important. Bring new ideas, that kind of thing. I definitely look for people that have done some research into, in this case, the RSC. But if I was recruiting somewhere else, and they've done research into the company or employer, so that's a definite recommendation there. And that can be quite hard to do, but looking at the websites, if you can find someone that's worked there or you've got in your network, then I would do that definitely. And then probably the next most important thing is confidence. I'm looking for someone who's got confidence, and I know in an interview situation that is difficult, and I do, I personally make allowances for that. But what I really want to see is somebody who believes in what they're saying. And somebody told me a long time ago, if you can't believe yourself what you're saying, then how can you expect others to believe you as well? So I do sort of abide by that mantra, and I do. There is a fine line between confidence and arrogance, but I do want to see someone who's confident in what they're saying. And then it goes down to sort of little things as well. It's sort of what you're wearing. I know that sounds very old-fashioned, but dressing smartly for me is important. And I know each recruiting manager is different. Again, if you're given a task, so I usually, when I interview, I usually set a little task. Say someone to give me a presentation on something that they've worked on, or just some aspect of their life. Keeping to time is really important. So having, if you're given 15 minutes to give a little talk or a presentation, then make it 13, 14 minutes to allow some questions at the end. That's very important to me. If I've been in an interview and that goes over 15 minutes, I've been there. Sometimes people are talking after 25 minutes. That's a big red flag for me, because they can't follow instructions. So that's really, really important. And then secondly, I think Julie mentioned this, was have some questions to hand, and try and make them really realistic and real questions, not the usual ones that that you've pulled out of a manual somewhere, but try and think and look at the job description and ask some real questions, because in most circumstances, the interviewer, and I tell this graduates quite a lot, the interviewer can be as nervous as the interviewee. You're meeting a new person. It's a very human thing to be, is nervous. So you're looking for people who sort of, again, who stand out from the crowd, and also looking to tell you something different about themselves. I think that's the biggest things. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, okay, that's good advice there. Yeah, so being confident, that's a really good point actually, Toby, because a lot of people, I think it's a cultural thing with many people. None of us really like, I've heard it described to me in career consultations as bigging yourself up or blowing your own trumpet and all of that sort of thing. And I think there's a real cultural hang up there. People don't like to do it. But I think there's a world of difference. It's not bragging or boasting or blowing your own trumpet to show how your skills and experience can help that employer to achieve their goals. So if it makes it easier to think of it that way, what you're doing is not blowing your own trumpet, but you're offering your expertise to that employer to help them to do something. And I think sometimes that can make it easier for you to really show how you can make a contribution, rather than feeling like it's all about you. Thanks, Toby. That was really helpful. Now, we're going to move on to networking now. Now, of course, at the moment, networking is rather difficult, as you might say. We have got a separate webinar on networking if you're interested. They'll be with the other Chem Careers webinars that you can find on our website. But I just really want to highlight how your RSC membership can be a great advantage to you at this time in terms of networking, because being an RSC member, it means that you're already a member of a network of over 50,000 people worldwide. So even if you think you haven't got a network and you're all on your own, you really have, and interacting with fellow RSC members and staff can really help you to find your feet and find that confidence again. And of course, it's a sobering thought, and probably only 20% of jobs are ever advertised. This figure varies wherever you read it, but I think I think we can safely say that the majority of jobs do not get advertised. They're harder to find. It might be because they're for a fairly senior role. It might be because it's a small company, you haven't got an advertising budget. But if you're just relying on looking at adverts for jobs to find your next role, you're missing out on an awful lot of opportunity. But don't let that be daunting, because there are lots of ways that you can do that. Networking should be a key component of your professional development. As a professional, it's one of your duties really to maintain a healthy network. So think really who you've met along your career journey already. How could you help them, and how can they help you? It's a two-way process. And I know a lot of other people, and again, it's another cultural thing, we don't particularly like asking for help. Just think of it as a way of bolstering the skills in that chemistry network that you already belong to. Somebody else might help you at this moment, but later on you might be able to help somebody else. So it's like a cascade, if you like. And we're all in this together, really. We're all chemists together. So it's worthwhile thinking about really how your network could help you and how your network could be the key to success. And in terms of how you can network, well, a lot of things are going to be on hold. That second bullet point there at the moment: conferences, seminars and events. Some of them have moved to virtual. A lot of them will be on hold at the moment, but there are lots and lots of ways that you can get involved and interact with other people without actually having to go anywhere or mingle too much. You've got online, social media. LinkedIn is probably the best one for professional networking. But don't forget your family, friends, social contacts that you have, any voluntary work that you do, any community work that you can do. Have a think about who you've got in your network now. Some of them will be related to the job you do. Some of them will be related to previous jobs or when you were at university. Some will come from outside your working life altogether. But one thing you can do is sort of do an audit now of your network. Who have you got? Who do you know? Where are they? Have a look at your LinkedIn profile. Your LinkedIn profile should describe you and not your most recent job. So think about the keywords that you'd want to be found for and think, would somebody find those in my LinkedIn profile if they were looking for somebody like me? Again, if you're not very confident on LinkedIn, you can always get in touch with us at the careers team, and we can maybe advise you and give you some help on that. And of course, if you belong to the RSC, as I said, you're a member of a very large network across the world. Toby, would you like to just go through some of the advantages of the RSC networks and how people can get involved with them?
Yeah, that's fine, Julie. Yeah, so I mean, I think the slide you've got on the screen at the moment just really outlines everything. Really, it's got 9 divisions. We've got the RSC's got 9 divisions. You know, multiple, lots of interest groups. And my advice would be, just if you're interested, get in touch with them. See whether they are open to network, and also I'd be prepared to, you know, what can you bring to that network. So tell them what what that is. And I think in most instances, when you're these networks, certainly the RSC ones, are always open to new members joining. So I would suggest just make contact and get in there through the various means, you know, that Julie's outlined. There's lots of activities that goes on, but yeah, just get in contact. That's the best bit of advice I can give, really.
Thanks, Toby. I always say the RSC networks are really networking for people who don't like networking, because they are very friendly, and you know that immediately you've got something in common with the other people in that group. So yes, again, there's a web link at the top of the slide there, and I'll repeat it towards the end of the presentation. Just go on the website, have a look and see what's there, see what you can join as part of your membership package, and just get involved. You'll be surprised at some of the information that can come out of very casual contact there. And of course, if it does mean that if this redundancy means that you're not currently working, it does help to keep you in touch with the chemistry community too, which will be a great help in terms of knowledge and also keeping your confidence going. So I really, really would urge you. They are very friendly and very helpful. So do find out what's there and get involved. Another thing that some of you may be thinking about if you've experienced a redundancy is becoming self-employed and becoming a consultant. Now, again, we have got quite a lot of support there for members who work in this way. There's a slide on the screen at the moment. All of those resources are available. If you go to the web link at the bottom of the page there's a whole page there devoted to what we can do to actually support members who are consultants. So I would encourage you to do that. So to summarise, really, your career, your responsibility. I really, really hope this situation works out well for you, and that you find another role which is just what you want and gives you new motivation and new initiative. But I hope that's the case, and even if it is, always think ahead though. Always think what could happen. Always know why you're doing the job you do. Know who else might want to employ you. Use a structured approach to achieve your goals, and focus on developing technical skills and transferable skills. And make this whole career management approach a way for you to take control of your future. And time that you spend on managing your career and on your professional development is the most important investment that you can make in your future. You've had this experience now, which has probably not been very pleasant. Really think to the future and think how you can future-proof yourself as much as you can. I'm going to go through some of the support that the RSC offers. Some of it we've touched on now, but here are some web links for you. The careers website there at the top of the page. You can find most of the other things from that page, but I will just take you through some of the details. We've talked about professional development a lot and how you can use that to take control of your own development. We've got a whole page on that, and we've actually got a facility online for you to plan and record your professional development and the outcomes, which will be very handy for you if you're thinking about building up evidence for future interviews and CVs. If you're thinking about retraining, we do have a database of approved training courses which have all been inspected by the RSC to make sure they reach standards. That's on the screen now. I'd particularly like to highlight professional registers. You know, for example, chartered chemist and some of the other professional designations designations that we have there. It could well be that you are able to apply for one of these designations, and there's a lot of help for you if you decide to do that. There's the web link which will tell you what they all are. If you're interested in applying for any of them, we can arrange for you to talk to one of the CChem advisors or an advisor for one of the other professional designations if you're interested. But you know, if it's something that's open to you, it's going to make you stand out and it will enhance your employability, then I would say find out more and go for it. We also have a mentoring scheme, a career mentoring scheme. So it's informal and it's very well regarded. We've had a lot of success with it. If you feel it would be useful to have a personal mentor for yourself, then you can find out more information on the web. I mentioned that we have done other webinars. We've got a whole series of them on things like CVs, applications, interviews, networking, and also some specific ones on working in certain sectors like regulatory affairs or defence science. So have a look there in the library and see if there's anything there that could help you. I'd also like to highlight the Chemist Community Fund. One of the worries that you may have around redundancy is financial worries. The Chemist Community Fund can be an extremely useful source of support on all of that kind of thing, on mental health issues, on finances, on legal issues, and they are very aware of the current situation and want to help members as much as possible. So they're a great team, and I really would encourage you, if you're experiencing any of those things, to get in contact with them, and you can find out more about what they do on that web link that's on the page now. And at the bottom, just to highlight how important networks are, there's the link to all our networks and communities at the bottom of the page. And I would encourage you to make the most of your membership and join whatever is of most relevance to you. So we're coming to the end of the webinar now, and I would encourage you, I hope it's been helpful to you. I hope it's provided you with a bit of energy and some encouragement. And I think if that's the way you feel at the moment, I hope it is, it might be worth just jotting down some notes now to get your plan going. So it might be useful if you could write down the most important thing that you've learned from this webinar session. It could be something big and meaty. It might be just something that was a chance remark from either Toby or me that's really resonated with you and that you can work with. So make a note of it now before it gets lost in all the noise. The second thing is, I'd recommend set yourself something like 3 actions to complete with deadlines. So maybe by the end of the week, by the end of next month, whatever is going to work for you. 3 things that you can actually do to get going again, to get your personal plan started. You'd be surprised at how much motivation that gives you. You know, when you've got something there written down somewhere, it's almost like making a promise to yourself, and you're far more likely to do it. And then the third thing is write down how you will know when you've achieved those goals that you've set for yourself. You know, what will be the outcomes that will let you know, yes, I've done that and it was a success. It's helped me make a decision, or whatever is going to work for you. I mentioned the career support team. I'm one of them. That's me on the screen now. My colleagues are Laura, Rob and Sarah. Our email is there, careers@rsc.org, and our web page is rsc.org/careers. And I would like to highlight the fact that we do offer 45-minute one-to-one career consultations by Zoom or phone or Skype for AMRSC, MRSC or FRSC members. So if you're interested, then please email us or look on our web pages, and there's an online booking system that we can direct you to, and you're very, very welcome to book an appointment. So, Toby, to finish up, if you had one piece of advice to offer a member who's in a redundancy situation, what would it be?
Thanks, Judy. Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I've got more than one piece of advice, but I think it's just highlighting. First thing is don't panic. You know, it's easier said than done, but just remember, you know, that probably if it's a site closure, you're not the only person in that position. And just try and think rationally, and that comes down to controlling the controllables, as I mentioned. Be prepared. You know, have a CV written, or a guide for a CV written that can be tailored to each specific job application. Have confidence as well. Realise that you are a commodity that is important. You have skills, undoubtedly, and try and bring those out and actually highlight them. And then don't be afraid to ask for help. And that can be anywhere. That can be family members, it can be within your network. If it's with the RSC, please do contact us. It's what we're here for. We're here for you and your professional body. So please do ask for that help, but don't be afraid to ask for help, because, you know, the more advice you get, the better it is. So yeah, thanks, Julie.
That's brilliant. Yes, no, thanks, Toby. I'd echo all that advice myself. You know, please do get in touch if there is any way that we can help you. You know, our email is careers@rsc.org, and we'd be very pleased to hear from you. So I hope that's been helpful. I mean, you know, certainly it's been very, very good for me and Toby to do something that we feel might be useful to members in this situation. We are always here for you. You know, do get in touch. I think really it's just for us to leave you with some things to think about and to say goodbye and good luck for now. So Toby, would you like to say goodbye to everybody?
Thanks, and goodbye, everyone. I hope it's been of some use. And again, thanks, Julie, for letting me contribute.
No, it's been absolutely great. And thank you all for listening. And of course, from Toby and me and from everyone else at the RSC, good luck with it all. And please don't hesitate to get in touch if we can help. So goodbye for now.